beautiful warrior finding victory over the lies formed against you helps women identify and fulfill their Christ-centered esteem and purpose in life. We become sister warriors together, and we're on a mission to make one another successful and confident. Women who have experienced shame lies in their past and in their present will now be able to debunk all of those lies and grasp the truth of who they are and what they can do and begin to live their life to the fullest.
Welcome back, Sister Warriors. Today we're going to talk on a topic that is relevant to almost all of us at some point in our lives. In fact, more than ever, people are reporting having experienced at some point in their lives loneliness. Even though we're more connected online with other people, we often choose to do so in shallow ways that don't reveal a lot of personal, intimate information. We're not open, we're not real, we're not vulnerable with the people that we meet with online oftentimes. And we don't feel a fulfilling connection with those that we meet with on the internet. And that is a problem because that's where most of us are connecting. In fact, when people are together in public places, often you see an entire family or group of friends who are not connecting with one another. They're looking at their phones instead of talking to each other. So this has become a problem. I hope that if you're connecting here online, you're actually doing so in a meaningful and deep and personal way, because you can do that online in some spaces for some topics, but we also need personal connections. And there are some barriers to that, some real barriers. And there have always been real barriers in different ways. Back in the days when people were experiencing more physical separation from one another, when we had pioneers moving across the plains, we began to investigate a phenomenon of madness associated with isolation. And that is seen sometimes in prison populations and other places where people are isolated. I used to wonder if that was a real thing until I started to investigate that. And there is a lot of evidence to support if you are socially isolated, part of your needs emotionally and cognitively go unmet to such a degree that you begin to lose your mental and emotional wellness, and you can fall apart. So that is an important part of who we are, and we need to be connected. But there are some things that kind of get in our way, and most of the things that we find as barriers, unlike the physical barriers that people experienced during the days of pioneers being miles away from one another, today the barriers that we experience are mindset barriers, and often they're myths. The main things that we experience as barriers to our connection and are overcoming that feeling of loneliness are that we believe we are somehow personally inadequate when it comes to being able to have something to offer to relationships. And the truth is, in Christ, we have Him to offer. So that's never true for those of us who are in Christ. We always have something to offer because we don't go to those relationships alone. And the second myth that we experience, and sometimes it's out of woundedness that we believe this, that there's something wrong with other people and we can't trust them enough to be in relationships with them. Well, for some people, they should not be trusted. But the thing is, we don't have to trust the other people in order to reach out in the love and the purpose of Christ. We only have to trust that Christ is going to cover us and be with us in those relationships and be with us to heal us and restore us and fulfill us after those relationships. And the third thing that is a barrier for us to developing meaningful relationships is often we go into those relationships with the wrong motives. We're looking for those human relationships to fulfill our needs in ways that only God can fulfill. If we go into those relationships thinking, I'm not adequate without this other person, then that isn't true, because we're fully adequate with Christ in who we are. Those relationships help us become more of who we are because we're connecting with others in the purpose of Christ. But those people aren't actually the ones who are fulfilling our emotional, spiritual, and mental needs. God is there to fulfill those things. And through our relationships with others, we are becoming streams of living water by flowing out into those relationships and having something to offer, not something just to take. And when we go into relationships expecting other people to be Jesus for us, then we're going to be sorely disappointed. And those people are going to also experience sort of an aversion or a reluctance to someone who's that needy. And make sure that you're entering relationships with the opportunity to give what God has given you, and to share with other people what you can do for one another, to collaborate, to build up one another's giftings, but not because God isn't the source, but because He is fulfilling His purpose through your relationship in the midst of you. You're gathering as a threefold cord, not as a two cord, but a threefold cord. So Christ should be the center of every friendship, of every business relationship, of every marriage or romantic relationship. If He is not centered in that, by you at least, then there's going to be something missing in that relationship, and it can become a treacherous place. So make sure you bring that with you to the relationship. Even if you're coming into relationships with non-believers, that should be the center of how you relate to other people. Then you'll never have to feel inadequate. You'll never have to worry about how other people are going to be able to give to you what you need, because God will provide that. If they don't provide what God has given them to give you, then He will provide it some other way. So make sure that you are experiencing healthy, realistic expectations in your relationships, and that will help you overcome barriers to loneliness. And I hope that you experience some benefits and blessings in your discussion at your tables. And I pray that you will begin to find fellowship, even if this is the only table here online that you're sitting at. I pray that you'll find some fellowship with someone very soon, because that is part of how God has created you. He's created you for relationship. And I, for one, am glad you're here with me. I look forward to hearing your comments. If you want to connect with me, I would love to engage with you, but I hope that you will also engage with other women locally where you live. Have a wonderful study, and may the Lord bless you in your heart to be fulfilled in fellowship with His people.